Recently, I've often dreamt of her. Watched her struggle. Watched her transform from an unloved deformity into the powerful beauty that is. Yennefer of Vengerberg.
You shall regret standing in my way.
Yennefer is one of the more well-known characters from The Witcher, and that is for a good reason, as she is one of the most impressive sorceresses, as well as the love interest of Geralt of Rivia. Recently, Gwent had a journey focused on Yennefer, and each week they released a new image displaying important moments of her life. The idea behind the journey was that Nimrod, a sorceress living a century after the events of the books, was looking back in time to learn more about Yennefer. In the books, Nimrod did something somewhat similar, as she worked with an neuromancer named Gwent Tilly to dream of the legends about Geralt and Ciri, to learn what had truly happened. There is no mention of the neuromancer in this journey as far as I could find, but for Nimrod to look into the past via dreams, it seems logical to assume Gwent is still by her side. Till now, Gwent has had 3 other journeys, each focusing on different characters and moments in time. My favorite one has to be the previous journey, as it told the story of Galathea and Madoc, as well as their relation with Azur. It offered a decent amount of new information on both new and old characters through the text they released each week. But in contrast to the first 3 journeys, Yennefers Journey is somewhat differently, as instead of pieces of a story, we get images of moments of her life. Each of the 12 images displays an important moment from the books and her backstory. It starts off with the birth of Yennefer on Valentine in 1173, and is quickly followed up by an image from young Yennefer, who was given a rough time in Aedirn by children due to her being a quarter elf and being misformed. Around the age of 14, Yennefer was taken by Tessia de Vries to Aretuza, in a scene that seems somewhat similar to what happened in the Netflix show. As far as I could remember, this was never mentioned in the books, but I could be mistaken. The 4th image is from the moment when Yennefer tried to kill herself, shortly after arriving in Aretuza. It was the real moment when she and Tessia start to become somewhat close, partly due to Tessia noticing that her attempt was serious, and not just a plea for help. After 4 years of studying, at the age of 18, Yennefer gets transformed into the woman she is known as today, changing her imperfections to the point where it could almost be impossible to notice, except of course for Geralt, who through his mutations managed to see the imperfections still. The journey from this point makes a 50-year jump in time, which I kind of find a shame, as it would have been interesting to see what Yennefer was up to in this time period, as we know very little overall about what happens to the characters in this time frame. Around the halfway point of the journey, we get to see one of the events around Yennefer's first meeting with Geralt, where they fought the Jinn and their fates became bound with Geralt's last wish. Their wish is followed by an image from a few years later, when their paths cross again during the hunt for the dragon in the Kestrel Mountains. The image displayed one of Yennefer's most impressive feats of magic, casting a spell with her leg. No sorcerer or sorceress has ever done this, and the events will be studied at the Magical Academy because of how difficult doing what she did was. On the image of the dragon hunt, we can also see Geralt's face, where he clearly does seem somewhat younger than in the games, which makes sense, as it takes part about 24 years before The Witcher 3. We also get a very young Dandelion, who in this image is about the same age as Sirius during The Witcher 3. But from the dragon hunt we move onwards to the First Northern War, the Battle of Sodden Hill. We see 2 other sorceresses in this image, those being Triss and Philippa. I've got to say it is nice to see Philippa's eyes once again, as every depiction of her since The Witcher 2 has always showed her with her eyes gouged out. Moving on from the battle, we get to the point in time when a young Ciri was taken by Yennefer to study at the Temple of Melitele in Alander. The Ciri in this image is about 14 years old. You can see already how she starts to resemble the way she looks in Witcher 3, even though the Ciri in this image is closer into the age Ciri was in the opening scene at Kaer Morhen in Geralt's dreams. The image displayed showed the start of the mother-daughter relationship of Yennefer and Ciri, making it a very important moment in Yennefer's life. The next image is somewhat less happy, as it shows Yennefer and Ciri together, but this time it is during the Tenant's coup. In the books, in the scene, Ciri was attacked by an elf, who got stabbed by Yennefer, which is depicted in this image. It would also be the last time that Yennefer and Ciri would see each other, for a while at least, as right after Ciri went through the portal of Tor Lara, vanishing to the Korth Desert, with no one knowing where she went. As we are getting close to the final image, we can see the scene from A Lady of the Lake, where Yennefer is captured and tortured by Vilgefortz, as she tried to save Ciri from his hands. It is Vilgefortz who stands right next to her, and it is kind of a shame that we don't get to see his scarred face here. The journey ends with the moment where the book ends, the kind of death of Yennefer and Geralt. This was where, to the stories from the future, their legends ended, making it a logical image to end on from the point of view of Nimrod. I do have to say one thing about this image, and that has to do with Geralt's face. In The Witcher 3, Ciri asks Geralt about the scar on his left eye, to which Geralt tells her that it is new and came from the cockatrice of Spala. The problem, however, is that Ciri is present at the moment of the final image, so him having the scar here doesn't make much sense. All in all, looking back at this journey, it was nice to see some events of Yennefer's past. However, I do prefer the way they did journey stories before. In an ideal situation, they would mix the both of them and give a short story with a fitting image. I understand that it is a lot more work, of course, but I did miss the story aspect from the previous journeys in this one. The only text included here was written in the Witcher alphabet, and they always contained a single sentence about the image, sometimes even just a year and 2 words. But I've got to say, it was great seeing some images of a younger Yennefer. The biggest highlight, however, for me has to be the images of the Saya and Nimba. We never have gotten depictions of the Saya in The Witcher games before, and the same goes for Nimba. So it is nice to finally see how CDPR imagines them. All in all, I like the journey, however my favorite still has to be the Azure journey. As while the images in this one were great, for me it is mainly the story that really makes the journey interesting. And I feel like we got some nice images. But this journey didn't offer the same depth as the previous ones. But what do you think of Yennefer's backstory? Which journey story has been your favorite thus far if you play Gwent? And do you prefer the images or the text way of telling the journey story? Till the next video. Bye.